Aspire Communication provides a wide variety of image, publicity and branding services to established industries and emerging talent. For nearly 20 years, Aspire has worked with a diverse roster of over 120 technology, health, political and talent clients, garnering regional and national awards in the United States. So if you're in need of a publicity and branding services, call 888 405 6730 or visit www.aspirecommunications.com. G'day, Brad Scott here, the host of the highly successful Naked Zombie radio show. Now, not only am I the host of this wonderful program, but I'm also a freelance broadcaster and voiceover artist. So if you're looking for someone to sell your product or be a part of your next voiceover project, and someone whose voice is heard in places like China, Japan, the UK, the USA, the Ukraine, and of course, Australia. Now, I'm easy to contact. You can either go to the contacts page and leave your details, or you can ring my professional studio on this phone number, +61 73103 0566, and let me know what your next project is, and I'll get a quote out to you ASAP. Simple as that. There's no commission structures, there's no third parties, and there's no agents. I will be working solely for you. So get in touch with me if you want one of Australia's leading voiceover talents to help you promote and sell your business or product. Thank you. I'm Brad Scott.
Well, that's enough of that crap. Welcome to Naked Zombie Paranormal Radio with your hosts, Brad Scott and Woodsy.
It is the 10th of August 2011 and you are listening to the best in Australian paranormal and pop culture radio. I am your host as always, Brad Scott, and you are listening to The Naked Zombie. Now, tonight we're going to have a fantastic time. I'm going to introduce this gentleman to you now. Look, his name is Micha Hanks. Now, he's basically had a long passion in the unique scientific mysteries that surround the world. Look, he's not a self-righteous skeptic, but he's a proudly contributed to articles regarding stories and scientific discoveries and political topics like magazines like Fate magazine, 14 Times, Mystery magazines, UFO magazine, TSC Daily, the Journal of Anomaly Science, and several others. Now, the thing was, in 2010, a good part of his research regarding an altered state of consciousness, psychedelic drugs, to the prevalence of similarities between archetypal folklore and of consciousness. Now, from around the world, he has accumulated, and he's written books like Magic, Mysticism, and The Molecule, which is now available for sale at this website. Now, you're going to get his website too, which is called The Grillian Report. Now, that is Gralien Report. Now, you're going to find his details actually on the website when we finish doing the show tonight. So, please welcome to the zombie, Mr. Micha A. Hanks. G'day, Micha. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Brad. And gosh, as always, thanks for having me on the program with you.
No, look, mate, I really, really enjoy having you guys on because you're just so full of information and wonder. I love it. Mate, now, we're going to basically start off with your website. And people, look, I know a lot of people know who you are, but with my side of the world, I'd like to introduce you to my side of the country and the Australasian side of things, because what you do with the Grillian Report, I hope I pronounced that correctly because I have been Australian when I explain that to you. It's a bit of a problem at times.
That was it's perfect.
Can you just give us a bit of rundown on your website and also what mainly it is about and how people can access this information, please?
Well, I told somebody recently on Facebook that I got real sad one day, and I decided that my woes toward mankind and people's general attitudes toward everything these days was just, it was becoming so problematic that I would need to try and, find some way to express these sentiments, these concerns I had for humanity and our future. And of course, I was just kidding. But the truth of the matter is that the Gralien Report, I do have a whole lot of faith for humanity, and I think that that's exemplified in the kind of articles that appear at the website each week, because I focus not only on just the paranormal, those things that expand what we call reality or consciousness, or humanity in general. We also feature fringe science. We feature religious topics. We feature every now and then something that'll touch on politics every now and then. It's really kind of a melting pot of a lot of different subjects and a lot of different avenues. For instance, right now, if people go to www.gralienreport.com, and as you said, incorrectly, I might add, you did indeed. It's GRALIEN report.com. We've got an article at the website right now, The Coming Transmigration, Bacterial Nanowires Point to Mankind's Future. So we're tying in UFOs and time travel, nanotechnology, just about everything you can imagine. Because I think that all these things, all these elements that, as I like to say, push us beyond the boundaries of what we consider the fringe, all these things truly do constitute the greater reality and what we are trying to perceive, what we have as a species been trying to perceive on a deeper level since time immemorial. Mm-hmm. What it is consciousness, it is reality, and the picture is incomplete. We have the pieces of the puzzle before us. We have not assembled the picture, so to speak, and therefore that is our goal, and that is my my humble attempt with the Gralien Report, is to try and put some of those pieces together, for readers, and of course with my weekly podcast of the same name, the Gralien Report podcast, with a weekly audience as well, and things are going pretty well with that. It's humorous, we have a funny element to it, but I think that the real diehard listeners out there realize that although we treat things fairly lightheartedly, I'm very passionate about the subject matter that we feature on the program. It means a lot to me, and I do take it seriously. I realize that it has to be, an entertainment, kind of presentation. You know how that goes. And of course, being a fantastic broadcaster like you are, you know that.
Stop it! I'm blushing.
I see it turning red right through Skype. No, but truly, you have to be able to present it in a way that people find it entertaining, but that you can get that message across. And that's my my humble attempt with the Gralien Report, is to try and get some semblance of a message about the greater reality that we as humans from time to time, I'd say seldom, but nonetheless we do from time to time at least come into contact with elements of this greater reality, and that's the Gralien Report.
Well, the thing is, it's not only just that, which you've also written as books, which I find absolutely fascinating. Now, your first book, I think, was Magic, Mysticism, and the Molecule, but a part of that is also the exposure of Uncovered and the Declassified, which is the UFO and aliens, and the ghosts and hauntings. Now, this is correct, I take it?
Oh, yes.
Excellent, I got that right. I'm very proud of myself now. So what we're going to look at doing is, so the first book that you actually wrote, and everyone can, if the listeners go to Amazon.com, and they can actually find these books for sale, and please, folks, do it, because I think you're going to get a lot out of this. If you've read the Gralien Report, you're going to find that the structure of the books is very much like the blogs that you write on your website, because they're very, very, like you said, they're very entertaining, but they're very informative as well. It's not just something that's been thrown together. A lot of thought and a lot of time has gone into this, and that's what I really enjoy about the website, and that, so the books are going to be just as good. So when we start talking about the books themselves, now, Expose, Uncovered, and Declassified. Now, how did you come about getting into the UFO and the alien side of it? I mean, because you think about it, a lot of people either do one or the other. They either do the UFOs or they do the ghosts. People have seemed to start specializing in certain areas. Like years ago, a lot of people, before TV become popular with ghost hunting programs and UFO shows, people generally dealt with a surrounding thing of UFOs and ghosts and the paranormal, and it was under a big umbrella. But now people are specialised. Mm-hmm. What made you go back and actually start doing things as an umbrella side of things, where you got UFOs and aliens and ghosts and hauntings and the whole genre of the paranormal, if you put it under that sort of structure?
Well, that's a very good question, and I don't have an answer. So next question, please.
Excellent. No, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. We'd like to thank our guest.
Right. No, in truth, that is a good question, Brad. And the thing is that, I've been told over the years for people, or rather by, researchers who've been doing it for a long time, they're like, Micah, you're very talented, but you don't have that one thing that you're best known for. You know, you're not a crypto guy, you're not a ghost guy, you're not a UFO guy. Why don't you pick one thing, stick with it, and make your name in that area of interest? You know, I've been told that for years, and that frankly just bores the hell out of me. And so I thought that, you know, really for me, the best way to approach this is, as opposed to try and look at, you know, maybe one element or another and try and focus specifically on that, whether that be Bigfoot or, you know, UFOs, or heck, you know, you could even be, I think these days, maybe a, you know, quote unquote, alien abduction researcher without per se being a UFO researcher. I'm certainly an advocate of the idea that those are two, you know, fairly separate fields of research. There are many people that describe abduction-like scenarios without there being a UFO component. Many people who describe unidentified aerial phenomenon without describing any kind of, you know, touchdown landings or interaction with beings that seem to come from that aircraft. So the specialists for years have told me, you know, why don't you just find one thing that you're really good at and do that? My first article was actually titled "Voices in the Dark: Do the Sasquatches Have a Language?" It was published in 2004 in Fate magazine. And although I'd been interested in this stuff and researched this stuff, you know, much, a good while before that, that was the first published article. And I remember, again, when that came out, a friend of mine, Joshua Warren, who's, of course, he's best known as the ghost guy, but Josh is also kind of multifaceted in his interests and his expertise. And Josh told me, he said, you know, that's a great idea, and I'd make that the whole crux of your career. You know, you need to become the Bigfoot, you know, vocalization guy, the guy who's talking about Bigfoot having a language. But again, when you study any of this phenomenon at length and compare it with other aspects of the strange and unusual, you do begin to find inevitably that there are parallels between them. You know, the cryptozoologists, and I discovered this long ago myself, the cryptozoologists are very quick to tell you that, you know, we are dealing indeed with a tangible, real, biological creature, and this does, you know, have merit for the mainstream scientific community, and they do need to pay this, you know, the attention that it deserves. But as soon as many of those cryptozoologists are faced with these reports of Bigfoot talking to people, you know, maybe not in a, you know, spoken English language per se, but, you know, these do appear to be creatures that, based on my own research, have an ability to make vocalizations that have the kind of rudimentary components of what might be perceived as language. Not only is there that aspect, but there are other strange aspects. There are reports of Bigfoot-like creatures that wear clothing. There are reports of Bigfoot-like creatures that can seem to vanish into thin air. And there's a surprisingly large amount of information out there that pertains to these sorts of kind of what, you know, I think Fortean researchers would call high strangeness with regard to cryptozoology. The proponents of the biological, Bigfoot, find themselves kind of in a tricky situation if they endorse these high strangeness theories, and so they most often maybe not ridicule them, but they certainly do discount those kinds of stories in favor of the more conventional reports that kind of fit that mold of what we're going for. And there's both, you know, merit, and also there's a lot of disgrace, I think, in a sense, to that. The merit, of course, being that, well, we can't treat this like it's a real biological organism and something that scientists might potentially take seriously, then we shouldn't deal with it at all. By the same token, it's a shame that these stranger aspects have to be discounted, because inevitably, when you discount those things, you are forfeiting what could be plausible elements of a greater mystery, and which eventually, through understanding those elements, may help us understand the greater mystery in question. Those are discounted because they don't seem to fit the preconceived notions of those investigators. And even though they may be justified in having those preconceptions, it is indeed a shame that in the true nature of science, we can't take into consideration all pieces of the puzzle and try and discern from those pieces. We can only have a few pieces that we allow ourselves to look at, and it is indeed a shame. So for me, looking at the greater span of phenomena, you know, aerial phenomena and cryptozoological things, ghosts and hauntings, interdimensional phenomena, all this, you begin to see that there are indeed these parallels, and many times there are parallels that begin to appear between these various kinds of phenomena that are unconventional, that don't indeed fit very conveniently into people's preconceived notions of what these phenomena are supposed to be and how they are supposed to behave. As opposed to discounting those things and saying, well, I am either this or I am nothing, I am a person who tries to say, at the root, I'm going to call myself a skeptic. I'm not going to give myself to belief, whether that be belief in what have been told these phenomena are, a Bigfoot, i.e. being a biological creature, or there not being a Bigfoot at all. I'm going to leave myself open to the possibility, but I'm going to try and look at it, first of all, as a journalist, and second of all, whenever possible, applying, scientific methodology to that so as to better discern the true nature of the phenomenon. And what it brings me to, Bradley, in totality is that, I have to accept all these different elements of the strange and unusual, and I take an almost a philosophical approach. The role of the talk about tripping over words, epistemological approach in terms of, what do the five senses tell us? What can we discern using the five senses, and what do we really know about reality? If these strange phenomena represent the greater reality or elements of what we can ultimately unravel as reality according to humans, a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, again, are being discounted, and I try to look at those logically and try and discern from that what we're really dealing with. And that is, for me, why I continue to look at the broader range of phenomena as opposed to limiting myself to one thing or another, because it's like, chewing on a single puzzle piece hoping to figure out what the big picture is. You're not going to do it. You've got to put them all together before you'll see the final end result.
Oh, look, I totally agree with that, mate. Now, what I've noticed is also, I remember, a while ago I gave a talk at a UFO convention. But because I was pretty lucky in a sense, like you, I sort of dabbled in lots of different things. And when I actually mentioned the fact that the possibility of ghosts being our future selves coming back from that side of things with UFOs, and that, how we're coming back and we're seeing moments in history, or we're cross time dimension and stuff like that. And I really made them think, you'd be surprised how many people I upset. Because the simple fact is, some people within that see UFOs as being solely alien, as in that when you try and bring another viewpoint to it, if they're so closed off to the idea about, no, aliens are from another planet, so they've got nothing to do, it really does upset people. Have you ever found that in your conversations with people over the years, because you dabble in different areas, and I know you give talks and stuff like that, have you found that same sort of backlash in a way where people want to say, no, this doesn't happen, no, it has to happen this way? And you find as being, I know you're a bit of a skeptic, but you're not so much a skeptic as in everything's shut off. You're actually a skeptic who gets in there and researches the stuff for yourself. You don't sit back and go, no, type thing.
Absolutely, yeah. To answer your first question, yeah, I've certainly run into people, from both extremes. People who want so badly to believe that when I tell them, well, there may be more to this than you are seeing here, and you should probably, before you give yourself to one singular notion of, for instance, we'll use Bigfoot again as an example. Before you give yourself to the idea of there being only a biological monstrosity running out there that's human-like, that very well may be the case. And in fact, I think that most of the evidence points to that. Not all of the evidence points to that, and people like, I've seen researchers over the years like John Keel and others who were kind of criticized and even demonized in a sense, and called demonologists for that matter, by virtue of the fact that they gave themselves more to a kind of interdimensional theory, so to speak,
That's
as
right.
to what they were. John realized that there was enough of this. Again, I use this term high strangeness. There was enough of that to where it warranted him questioning whether this was entirely physical reality as we know it. And more researchers I come across, Brad, will tell you that, whatever it is that you study when it comes to the unexplained, you will find that A, there is an interactive element, and B, it is not entirely physical. Whatever it is something that is partially non-physical, or maybe, according to some of the physicists and philosophers and people that I speak with, what they might call pre-physical or pre-material. This gets into a whole different realm of understanding reality and the physics of the universe. But indeed, it may be something that stems from what humans could only liken or hope to try and liken to being something that is pre-material as we know it, and something that, by virtue of that, is also that something that we can interact with and almost manipulate and change as it is manifesting before us. Now, I know that sounds strange, but we see this all quite a bit in various different kinds of fields of research and kinds of phenomena. A good example, for instance, is that there's this common conception that ghosts are spirits of the dead. Okay, ghosts are spirits of the dead, and therefore, if that energy is representative of the biological organism that existed, then logically we could probably assume that a ghost, if it appears before someone like you or I, is going to appear to us, and it's going to be a naked person standing there because those clothing that person may have worn during their lifetime, those weren't a part of the biological entity, and therefore ghosts should be naked. Now, most time, we know that there are naked zombies, but there are less seldom. Yes, but there are less seldom. No, indeed. We had to drop the line there, but there may be naked zombies, but the naked ghosts are far less seen, in these reports of ghosts and hauntings. People often report seeing ghosts in period clothing and things like that. So then the natural progression of thought is that, well, then maybe we aren't dealing with an actual, lingering consciousness, a spiritual manifestation of a consciousness that once existed. Maybe it's a time slip or something like that. But that, rather the notion of a time slip being that a person is literally witnessing kind of a replaying of events from a previous period, that doesn't explain the interactivity, again, that I mentioned, where people seem to be able to interact with these spirits. Many people over the years have told me that they'll wake up in the middle of the night to see a ghost standing over their bed. The ghost is standing there, it's looking right at them, and they're terrified. Their initial responses, they think, and it's interesting because I'd say that probably 6 or 7 times out of 10, people will always tell me when they experience this, that they woke up, they saw a person standing at the foot of the bed, staring intently at them. They were terrified, and they thought one thing: someone has broken into my house. They were terrified. They literally couldn't move, and they were like, oh my God, what do I do? And they might sit up. They'll start to try and talk to the person. Please don't hurt me. Take whatever you want. And then the individual begins to disappear, and then they're gone. And then they're left to ponder, well, was I dreaming? My God, it seems so real. I couldn't have been dreaming. Surely not. You wouldn't believe how many people have told me this very sort of story. And again, we're faced with this situation where a spirit was staring right at that person standing at the foot of the bed. Some people even describe spirits trying to get into the bed with them, which is a whole other story altogether. Very seldom are these naked spirits running around. So indeed, there is something that doesn't really jive with the idea of there just being a physical manifestation of a human body. Something about it is interactive, and something about this this manifestation has both physical and non-physical elements that can be attached to it as well. And whether it be ghosts or UFOs or cryptozoology, we see that this is, again, consistent from, various formation of phenomenon to phenomenon. And so when you try and approach it from that perspective, again, coming back to your primary question, yes, I do indeed meet people who, when I try and say, well, maybe we should accept the notion that a ghost isn't the spirit of a dead person. Maybe there is more to this phenomenon than something so simple as the souls of the deceased. A lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people have made up their mind already based on the literature. They read everything Hans Holzer and everyone else has written, and they believe that they know already what the mystery is, which I think, Hans and many others, would tell those both here still with us and those who have gone on that we don't know the true nature of the mystery. And so that, bringing us back to this second element of your first question about me being a skeptic, this is why I say I'm skeptical. To me, a skeptic, Brad, is not a person who discounts possibilities for the sake of trying to disprove things. Those are debunkers. Okay, James Randi, Philip Klass, some of these types, and I don't mind naming names because I think those guys proudly call themselves those kinds of skeptics. They wouldn't.
The amazing Randy.
Yeah, he wouldn't disagree with me calling him a skeptic. I have a few other choice words I'd use for a guy like that. But the thing is because there's nothing scientific about, again, just trying to justify and that also claiming to have monetary rewards for people based on justifying those preconceptions of his. He is just as preconceived and as biased as anybody else. A true skeptic goes into the situation and says, okay, here's the evidence. Here's the information available to us. I don't know what the truth is, but I'm not going to lend myself to belief based blindly on what I want to feel about this. I'm going to form a decision only once I've looked at the evidence and ruled out the impossible. That is the kind of skeptic I am. And when someone calls themselves a skeptic, I wish more people called themselves that as well.
Look, I agree. Look, do you think a lot of it actually, why people's perception have focused on individual events like believing a ghost is a ghost of a disembodied person is more to do with the TV shows that are out there nowadays, like the Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and Most Haunted, I think, is now off air. But a lot of those programs where all they do is they repeat themselves with the fact, oh, this is a person who's died and stuff like that. So do you reckon the mass population as a person looks at that and goes, oh, well, maybe that is it?
Absolutely, Brad. Yeah, I mean, it's almost disgusting how susceptible to influence from pop culture and media that people are these days. People don't want to read books and think for themselves. I always bring this up, and I've said this so many times it's probably, redundant for a lot of people who follow me and research I do and my podcasts and interviews and things I've done. I'm always asked about the Ancient Aliens program. It's a fantastic program. There are a lot of people. In fact, I interviewed earlier tonight George Norrie of Coast to Coast AM, Giorgio Tsoukalos also, who is one of the characters who's instrumental in that program. They're all fantastic researchers. When people ask me about that program, I always tell them, look, don't look at that show, okay? Don't watch that show and say, okay, now I know all about ancient astronauts without having gone back, read the literature from these individuals who appear on the program, David Hatcher Childress, Philip Coppens, Eric von Daniken, the aforementioned George Norrie, and Giorgio Tsoukalos, all these kinds of individuals that appear on that program. Don't watch the show, hear 15-second sound bites and say that you're an expert on this stuff. Give yourself a little time to really review and familiarize yourself with the body of literature and the greater body of information that these people have worked their entire lives to put out there. When you base your knowledge on a television program, inevitably you're going to fall into those kind of philosophical black holes that the philosopher Stephen Law talks about, and so many others. And a good example of this, for instance, I'm a researcher. As a matter of fact, these two anthologies that I've done, Exposed, Uncovered, and Declassified. First was UFOs and Aliens. Now we've got a Ghosts and Hauntings edition coming out. Hopefully I haven't spoken too soon in saying that there will be an Ancient Mysteries installment of this series as well.
No, by all means.
When I was researching for this one, I was getting into anti-gravitics and secret aircraft that may have been based on some flying devices that were described in the ancient Sanskrit epics of ancient India. Digging into this research, I certainly didn't find that there was no evidence of these craft ever existing. I do see that a lot of people read into what other researchers say, and so for me, I pride myself in being someone who tries not to go to, what this horse or what this horse's mouth had to say. I try and go to the primary source and find out what those actual sources say. Interesting, you'll find with the Sanskrit documents that refer to these vimanas and things like that most of them were translated, and even many of the conventional translations that people read and reference today were translated at a time prior to modern aviation, and a lot can be inferred based on the translations made by those individuals prior to modern aviation and the interpretations that we have today of modern aircraft. Now, that said, it clearly describes flying aircraft, and many of these dudes seem to resemble UFOs and things, but I was very interested because my grandfather, who's in his 90s, described for me recently a notion that the Germans during World War II had been working on anti-gravity craft of their own, and that they had been doing tests with anti-gravity. I was very interested to hear my grandfather say this because my grandfather, again, is in his 90s. He was actually in the service during World War II. I have known many people over the years who served in government and even during the World War II years. And none of them had ever told me personally that they knew or had knowledge of the Germans involving themselves in anti-gravity experiments, specifically this thing that they called the Glock or the Bell. So my grandfather mentioned that one day, kind of in passing. My brother and I had gone to visit him. He was actually in the hospital at the time, but he of course, is fine still. And when he got back to his house, I remembered him saying that. And I went to visit him again, and I asked him again, Granddad, what was that you mentioned that time about the Germans and anti-gravity? And where did you come across that information? I expected he might have a clandestine source from more than a century ago. And he says, well, I'd seen it on television.
Well, that's right. I get all my history from television.
Exactly. But see, that's the thing, is that so many people do. And I say, no, granted, television isn't all bad, but the thing is that we really need to try and cross-reference the information that we get from television programs like Ancient Aliens or Ghost Hunters or any of these kinds of things, which clearly are driven more toward entertainment. You need to cross-reference that with the body of information that exists out there so that you don't formulate these, what, again, the philosopher Stephen Law calls these philosophical black holes. People can very easily fall into them when there's little or no evidence to back up the claims being laid.
But you notice that, because you look at all aspects of this and you have seen the amount of TV shows that have come out there now, and they all seem to specialize in a certain areas and stuff like that. Do you think that the people are getting into the paranormal nowadays? And look, when I started doing it 20 years ago, we didn't have TV shows. We didn't have, everything I learnt was through books, like Hans Holzer and all the rest of it. And that's how I developed my interest. I didn't have someone explaining to me. I come from a small country town. I think I was the only bloke in the friggin' town who did it.
Right.
But as things progress and technology is, with the internet and everything like that, do you think people's perception now is more to do with, well, I'm going to start up a group, I'm going to become famous, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and there's only a very small handful of people that actually make that, and 99.9% of them do it for the reason solely to learn and get the evidence and to hang on to that evidence and share it with the broader public. But there's always that 1% out there who see it solely as a marketing tool, as a way to make money, as do this, do that, get on TV, Do you think that's the reason why we've had such a mass explosion of groups coming in around the world now? And it's not just in Australia here, it's everywhere.
Well, yeah, there are definitely people out there who are trying to cash in on it. And I'll say this also. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying to make money doing
no.
what, here over here in the States, that's the American dream. Do what you love and you're not really working. And you and I were talking about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that you're not saying, now people, if you really love what you're doing, you have to be like Gandhi, or Mother Teresa and, commit to a life of solitude and poverty. Although that may not be such a bad thing, that may not also be for everyone. But the thing is I think that, although there are some people who are very obviously more motivated by the money than the research. I pride myself in not being one of those individuals myself. And I'm also very upfront with the fact that in addition to this kind of research, I do make money as a writer. And I make, actually, there's very little I make money doing outside of, writing about this sort of subject matter. Save only being a musician on the weekends. I perform in a couple of different groups, and I play a lot of different genres of music, ranging from classic rock to bluegrass and acoustic folk and things like that. Between the two, I'm able to make a living, and it's very little known fact, but a lot of people who do this sort of thing, people who are interested in esoterica and the unexplained, have done this. The father of modern cryptozoology, Bernard Heuvelmans, was also actually, I think, a jazz singer, and he made a lot of his money being a singer like that. Jerry Clark, who at times had been an editor of Fate magazine and, of course, authored some of the largest UFO encyclopedias around, conveniently titled the UFO Encyclopedia. Jerry Clark also had written a number of folk and country songs that he had sold and had been recorded by some big-name country artists and things like that. So, and I always tell people that when I met Jim Mars, even though we had all this in common too, Jim Mars was in Asheville, where not only do I live here, but Joshua Warren, my friend, and of course my fourth cousin as well. He lives here in Asheville. Yeah, so Joshua Warren and I are actually related, yes. But we, Jim Mars, Nick Redfern, and I went back to Josh's house when they were in town a few years ago for a conference Josh was putting on. And, Jim and I, we got the guitars up and we started singing bluegrass songs together. So a lot of musicians, exist in the paranormal community, and a few of them, like myself, make, at least part of their income doing this. But I'm glad that I don't make all my money doing paranormal stuff, because I think that releases me somewhat from the kind of Carney X aspect of it, where I have to be pitching myself constantly.
That's right.
That said, there are a lot of researchers out there who make every dime that they earn. Nick Redfern's a good example. I don't think he does anything but full-time research and write. There's no Carney X aspect associated with Nick Redfern. He's as crack shot and as professional as anyone out there. He works. He's truly a workaholic, and he gets up at 7:30, 8:30 every morning. He makes a cup of English breakfast tea, gets behind the computer. He works till 5. His wife comes home, and then he spends family time. But it is a full-time job for him, and he's the real deal. So there are some people who are lucky enough and gifted enough, truly as writers, like Nick and Jim and Joshua, to be able to write and make a living doing that. Then there are some people who I think are attracted to the thrill of the adventure, and maybe that comes, that's the only thing that comes before actually hoping to make money off of it and, pitching television shows and things like that. And obviously there are some people who have made far more money off the entertainment aspect of this. And the only detriment to that is, again, far be it for me to tell anyone what they can and cannot do to make money. But so many of these television programs, with the stresses of we have a weekly episode that's going to air at 8 p.m. Central Time, or whatever, you have this pressure put on you to be able to turn over content and very consistently. And if
That's
there's no
right.
content to be found, it's almost inevitable, Brad, that content, if it can't be found, it will be created. And I think that this leads to a lot of phonies and frauds and hucksters in these fields. And I'm not going to name names. I'm not speaking of anyone specifically. I'm just saying that in a general sense, inevitably, if you are pressured into having to come up with so much content on such a regular basis, you're going to have to at some point meet those demands, whether or not you actually find what you've been looking for or not. You see what I'm saying?
Speaking about Bigfoot, I don't know if you heard this, but there was a recent Bigfoot program that was hunting Bigfoot or something like that, or Bigfoot hunters or something like that, where the actual cast of the show were actually starting to complain because a lot of the evidence that they were made to make up. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is a terrible thing. And these are people who base their whole career around searching for the truth and have someone else tell them how to do it, just to
Yeah.
make a show.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that particular complaint. I think it was actually Matt Moneymaker who is of course the brains behind the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. And I've spoken to Matt a few times in the past by phone. And yeah, I remember one specific incident. It was Easter Sunday several years ago, and Matt called me. He was riding a train from, I think, I can't remember, someplace in Colorado or Nevada, and I think he was headed up to Washington State. So he was traveling by train and had this long train ride, and he called me, and we spoke for about an hour that afternoon about various things because he was coming with the BFRO, his organization, to North Carolina. They were going to be engaging in a Bigfoot investigation here, and so he and I had a long discussion about what they were going to do and what he hoped to try and accomplish while they were here. This wasn't an interview; it was actually kind of an informal conversation by phone. He called me, but Matt, I know him to be a person who is very passionate about what he does. Very, very passionate. He does everything that he can, I believe, to maintain scientific scrutiny, and methodical practices, with regard to what his organization involves themselves in. And he had some serious complaints about basically, he said that there was a person lingering around the set one evening. I think that he went chasing after him. The cameraman followed him, and when it was edited later, they alluded that there might have been a large creature that he'd been following. Matt said that he knew all along that it was a person, very clearly a human being who was trying to observe, the filming and everything, and he chased them off. But, that's what happens. And like you said, Brad, when you bring the television element into it, not that all television programs are bad or every program that professes to be a documentary. For instance, I've got a copy of Mark Cowden's new book, Spirit Voices, that Anomalist Books has put out. And Mark had been involved in a ghost investigation that the BBC news network in the UK had been involved in producing. And it seemed to be a far more legitimate presentation of ghost investigations and paranormal investigation than the kind of thing that we see typically here in the United States. And he actually managed to capture, and this is what the crux of his book is about, he managed to capture an audio segment where there was a psychic who claimed that they were communicating with a spirit there on the property. And Mark was recording audio. And he managed to gather audio not only of the psychic, but also responses that allegedly came from this disembodied spirit or whatever it was, this ghost, if you will, that was communicating with the psychic. And this all transpired while there were cameras rolling. So, there certainly is some merit. In fact, in that instance, great merit to there being a film crew there on hand rolling and documenting this incredible circumstance. By the same token, there's just as much good as there is bad typically. Maybe not in that instance, but in the greater scheme of television and the paranormal, we see that. We've already kind of identified what some of those elements are. So, again, there is good and there is bad. And, it pains me when I see researchers like Matt Moneymaker and people like that feel like the merit of their hard work has been compromised by virtue of, a television program trying to sensationalize and, basically meet the demands of primetime television and the content that they are, basically required to have to provide each week.
I mean, these people that are out on that sort of side of things, I mean, that they put so much time and effort into it. I mean, most of them started off as proper investigators to begin with. I mean, this is their thing. This is their field. This is what they had the passion for. And it's a shame, especially with poor Matt, what happened, that he felt he went under, that happened to him. I mean, his whole career is based on the amount of work he's put in, and a lot of these groups do. And it's a shame that, I'd like to see personally myself that, people within the field, just probably take a step back and think, well, maybe TV isn't always the best for them, if you know what I mean. It's more that if you've got to have the passion for the paranormal first before anything. Look, if you get a TV deal and great and you can make it work, succeed, that's wonderful. That is, I wish anyone the best in that. I really do, because there should be more programs out there. But there should be different programs as well. I mean, like the UFOs and the crypto side of it, and of course the ghost side of it. I mean, but there's the urban legend side of things as well. I mean, I'd love to see something like that. It's wonderful to see that. Now, you've actually also, have you helped with a few TV shows as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Micah. Now, with these TV shows, and you actually got, when you go out and you go to film and stuff like that, and you get used as a consultant, actually you're part of the show itself. Can you explain to the listeners that what it's actually like being there on the film set for something like this, and the process that's involved in that, and the people you've met, because there'd be some fantastic stories that you can obviously share with us, and some you can't, that involve late night drinking sessions, no doubt. If anything like me, mate, yes, there's been a few of those in my time.
Those are the very ones I was going to share with you, though.
Oh, by all means, look, as long as they don't involve standing up on tables naked and dancing to bad music, I don't care. So, but by all means, mate, look, please, I'd love to hear some of them.
Well,
I'm sure
actually, well, yeah, I've done a number of interviews, both by myself and then a few also with the Lemur team, which is Joshua Warren's paranormal investigation team. Now, I'm no longer a part of the Lemur team. I decided to strike out on my own and kind of take a different approach these days, which I do. I have very different views from Joshua Warren today. We're friends, and that's fine. The thing is that I credit Josh with being bold enough and being a good enough friend to help me develop, views of my own, whether or not they contrast from his perspectives on things. And it's not like, terrible rivalry kind of disagreements or something like that. No, it's just the kinds of differing opinions that will naturally come about from researcher to researcher as time goes on, and as, a person's perspective of the greater body of phenomenon, is taken into account, and discernment is made based on the patterns and associations seen therein. So, although, I'm good friends with Nick Redfern, but, Nick and I don't see eye to eye on absolutely everything. I would, call Joshua and Nick both, literally, as close to me probably as my own brother, So, but that said, I've done a lot of television programs with Joshua Warren and the Lemur people, and a few on my own as well. One that I did by myself years ago was a television experience where there was a subsidiary of NBC Network out of the Florida Panhandle came up to North Carolina. They wanted to do an investigation of a haunted bed and actually it wasn't a bed and breakfast. It's very large. It's 4-star inn and a spa and resort here in Western North Carolina, the Grove Park Inn. They wanted to do a segment there at the Grove Park Inn, and I went out. And the host and I appeared on there, and although they definitely wanted to hear, legitimate stories about the nature of the haunting at this location, we staged not anything like a ghostly happening or whatnot, but there were some comedic elements that were staged in the filming to kind of lend an air of silliness to the segment when it would eventually air. And actually, I'm fine with that. It's one thing if I have to be silly about something. I think parody is just fine. It's when you're asked to basically do something that that would give the impression to the viewer that there was a lot going on or something incredible happened when in fact nothing happened. That's not the kind of thing I'll give myself to. There was another experience that this time I actually was with Joshua Warren, and we were in the Linville Gorge. We were filming with the film crew, and this didn't again amount to being fabricate evidence and we're going to film you or whatever. But I was asked, basically it was late at night, and they said can you mess around with the meters a little bit and make it look just so we can get some stock footage, make it look like you're kind of messing with meters and getting some readings and things like that so that we can use for footage during segues. Again, I think that's different from outright falsifying information because with all the footage that's being taken, you have to. When it comes to editing, they have to have little, snippets and things that they can use for editing purposes. And rather than having us all standing around with our hands in our pockets, it looks a little better if people are, turning dials on, a tri-field natural electromagnetic field detector or a Geiger counter or something like that, operating a camera. So these kinds of things, again, were provided from time to time. The best filming experience I ever had, this one again was with Joshua Warren as well. There were a lot of good ones with Joshua.
I'll have to get Josh on the show, I think.
You'll have to get
see what you've been getting up to.
Yeah. Josh is probably one of the best. Oh gosh, I wish you could get he and I in a room together. We.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do is if we will do that if you like. We will get both you gentlemen on the show at the same time. I think it would make a wonderful hour of entertainment because I know you have a fantastic sense of humour. Micah, I've seen you in action on TV, mate. You can see that look in your eye when you're about to play up. You can just pick it a mile away. Yeah, I'd love to get both you boys on. So we'll talk after the show about making that happen.
Sure.
Sorry, mate. Keep going.
No, that's okay. I'd love to do that. Yeah, and Josh, I think, would like that too. Josh and I, again, I'm no longer working functionally with the Lemur team. I still submit information to Josh a good bit. When I was speaking with George Norrie earlier this evening, of course, I mentioned to him, I said, George, something you probably don't know about Josh and I, we're actually kinfolk. We're fourth cousins. And I think that was a kick for him. But, and it's true. Josh and I, blood's thicker than water and we're family. And so we despite, different, we were not that different in our interpretations. I make it sound like we're, black and white or something like that. We're not that different. In fact, Josh and I are probably far more similar than we are different. But the thing is that he is such an interesting guy and such a unique character and truly a giving spirit. And I've always loved being around Josh. And my only regret right now is that really, I've been pursuing, independently my own career as a writer and a journalist about this stuff. Josh, of course, is not just a writer. If anything, Josh is one of the better writers out there when it comes to this sort of stuff. He and I both appear in this anthology, Ghosts and Hauntings, in the Exposed, Uncovered, and Declassified series that New Pages put out. So you'll find not only myself and Joshua with articles in that anthology, but Nick Redfern, Marie Jones, Larry Flaxman, Andrew Nichols, Lloyd Auerbach. There are so many others too. But my regret is that despite the fact that our names appear in so many of the same places and we live in the very same town, Josh and I are both so busy. He's out of town, I think, until mid-August. He's going to be filming some more television stuff and everything. And meanwhile, I'm working on a couple of book projects. So, we seldom get to see one another as much as we'd like to. But, I think that the dream lives on and, maybe right here on this radio program, we will be reunited.
Oh, look, I honestly hope so. And look, and just on with regard to the final thing I'd like to say on the TV side of it is that, I know that a lot of the people in the field, especially a lot of them on the TV shows, and that, they would rather walk away than fake something. They would rather throw it in and say, no, bugger you, Jack, and tell the producers where to go, because they have spent their entire career building up a reputation. And it is a big thing to go and put yourself out there in the public eye within the paranormal field because you get so much scrutiny, no matter what. Look, even doing the Naked Zombie, you do get scrutinized from time to time from people who don't always agree with what you say or what your opinion is. But I think that's very important that you keep having your own opinion and doing that. And I know that a lot of these guys, like the guys from Taps and Ghost Adventures, they do their own stuff, so it's as it is. But a lot of these shows, the new shows are coming out that I'm sure with their professionalism within the field that they would rather walk away, like Matt, basically in a nutshell, has sort of put it, Matt Moneymaker, he's sort of put it down on the line. His career, his reputation is more important to him than the show. And this is the thing, and this is what makes me very proud still being in the field. Of course, we're going to have people out there who are going to do it no matter what because they think they're going to get something out of it. But 99.9% of them out there, I reckon, would do that. They would walk away rather than jeopardize what they've worked towards.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The majority is, if anything, I'd say, probably better than 90% of everyone I've ever come into contact with when it comes to people who invest their time and their energy in this sort of research. They're all people who really do want to see changes, for the better. I keep coming back to this well-known and often spoken statement, that Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. I believe that, Brad. I believe that to the very base of my being. And I would say, again, that the majority of the researchers I've known over the years are the very same way. Some of them are lucky enough to be able to find ways to monetize that. But you know what? That's good because, someone can...
It is.
If a person can make a living doing what they love, then that means that they can devote their full time and attention to it. And we're granted this fantastic body of information that is both entertaining and enlightening, sometimes frightening, but often something that helps us better understand not just the nature of reality, but ultimately ourselves. And so it's a blessing, when people are able to make that almighty dollar doing what they do. There are maybe only a handful of people I've known over the years who are a little less scrupulous, but even those individuals aren't entirely without merit and character. So yeah.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I think that everyone who contributes to the field, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're very little known person and all you've done is devoted time, you don't even have a website, but you're out there each week getting the information and putting out there the best way you can to the person who is making money out of the field and trying to educate as many people as possible. I think everyone contributes in a way. If you know what I mean, if you love the field, you're going to contribute the best way that you know how, and I think everyone's entitled to that bit of recognition. And that's why, me personally, that's why I have a lot of groups who I interview on the show, even if it's only for 20 minutes in segments, is because what they're doing, is what they're giving to the field. They don't have websites and stuff like that no one really knows about, but I like to give them that sort of recognition. But it's also to do with folks like yourself who has been so long in it, who have so much wealth of information, have contributed countless hours sitting down behind I'm going to use a verbal typewriter here to produce the information for others to read. So look, I really do congratulate you, mate, on the amount of work that you've put into this field, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. And we haven't done anything about giving you a plug yet, mate, and I'm so sorry. You're just so interesting to talk to. It's like I'm just hanging on every word. And you've answered all my questions, which is absolutely even better for me. That's fantastic. But listen, folks, I've got to give you a website, a plug and stuff like that now, mate. Look, it's called the Gralien Report, and you can actually go, if you go to www.gralienreport.com. That's the Gralien Report. You can find Micha's information on there as well, and also if you'd like to look up for Micha's books on Amazon.com, but they can also get it from this website too, can't they, mate?
That's right, yeah.
Yep. Now, it also, so you've got the UFO and Aliens and Ghosts and Hauntings that is already out. And now you sort of slipped up a bit there, mate. You said there's something else coming out as well. You want to give us a bit of a heads up on that?
Yeah.
I remember everything.
I have to be careful because if I say too much, they'll deneuralize me again. Yeah, I think that the series is going to be a trilogy, yes, and maybe, who knows, maybe there'll be more than that in the future, and that's really information I don't have. But yes, this is the first two installments of this anthology. Of course, UFOs and Aliens is out. The next Exposed, Uncovered, and Declassified Ghosts and Hauntings is on the way. It should be available in bookstores all over the place, and of course online at Amazon.com and at NewPageBooks.com before very long. There will be a third installment, and I'll tell you this. Yep. The third installment, if you're a fan of Ancient Aliens and programs like that, you're going to love this anthology. In fact, this anthology features not only myself, but a lot of the people who appear on that very program and so many of these other fine programs that are out there and available. And I consider that essay probably to be the very best of the three that I've done. So, you definitely want to make a point of, once they're all available, pick up, a copy of each of these. They're fantastic. They draw from all the best researchers and experts in the fields of everything from ghosts and hauntings to UFOs, ancient mysteries, and who knows what else. So it's fantastic. You don't want to miss these Exposed, Uncovered, and Declassified UFOs and Aliens and Ghosts and Hauntings. These are both available through New Page Books. And, if people want to check out my book, Magic, Mysticism, and the Molecule, again, that's available at www.gralienreport.com or on Amazon.com just as well.
No, look, I appreciate it. Look, mate, we've got about 5 minutes to go, and the hour has just flown again. I'm going to have to start doing longer shows. Seriously, I've getting a lot of requests for it because I keep it to an hour because, I bore people. No, I don't. I keep it to that sort of thing. No, but look, like I like to say to Micah, look, you've devoted a lot of years just to this, to gather the information. Now, are you happy also to take? So look, can people contact you if they've got? So if your people go to to the Grey Alien Report, and they can see all these great articles and stories that you've written and this information that you produce. And I'm on there all the time because I just learn so much from it. Is it the fact that people, if they have a story idea or they have a lead for you, can they contact you with it? And so then you can run it from there if you think it's, it's something in there to continue on with?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I encourage that. I want people to try and contact me if they have, questions or if they have their own stories that they want to relate. And the best way to reach me is info@grayalienreport.com. If you go to the website, in fact, right there in the middle column, you'll scroll down and there'll be a little button that says submit a news tip. You can go right there, click that button, and you can send an email directly to me. That's the best way to reach me. And of course, a lot of people contact me after they've listened to the program. And each week we do put out a Grey Alien Report podcast, myself along with my producer and co-host Chris Hayes and Matt Oakley. The three of us, we just have a ball doing this show every week. And, we always love to try and probe these greater mysteries and talk about, probe's definitely not the kind of word you want to use when you're talking about this kind of stuff. I can hear you snickering.
Sorry. I'm Australian. I snicker at anything. I can't help it.
That's okay, but Bradley, we'll have to get you on the show sometime. Also,
look, mate, I would love to. I mean, yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, anything to do with this sort of field, I'm there. I'm up for it, mate. It's also because of my what do I got told once? Because of my sultry Australian accent.
Oh yes.
Yeah, no, you don't agree with that? That's all right then. I don't blame you.
No, I said yes, actually.
I did. Oh, damn. Oh, no. I'm blushing again.
Yeah.
But no, look, mate. Look, we've only got a couple of minutes to go, and I just want everyone to know, look, that you're actually going to find the direct link. You'll see this direct link straight underneath today's radio show. So you actually people will be able to click straight onto your website. Now, if you do have something, and if you're having trouble getting hold of Micha, please, you can contact me directly via the Naked Zombie website. Just go to the contacts page. I have Micha's details and I can forward anything on to him as well. So I'm very good at doing that for my guests that I've had on the show and that. And mate, look, in closing, is there anything you'd like to bring up at the final couple of minutes tonight for the listeners out there? And look, and I want as many people as possible who listen to the show to actually jump on the website, the Grey Alien Report, because you're going to find so much information. It is unbelievable. And the fact that we've had Nick Redfern on the show and he's just marvelous, and we've had so many great guests on the show, Naked Zombie, and you've just added to it as well, mate. But you're going to find details on people who have been on the show and their information as well. Don't forget about them, and it's positive and it's type thing. And that was a very bad Tim the Tall Man impersonation, mind you. And but is there anything else, my friend, that you'd like to mention tonight before we sign off for this evening?
I always end my own program by telling people, whatever you're doing out there, just stay informed and stay strange. And that's the best information I can pass along to anyone. I sincerely hope that the passion of the pursuit of this sort of phenomenon invigorates and enlivens each person out there listening, and that their lives are well brought to a greater, more meaningful place, just like it has done for me. And I hope that we all enjoy many more years of this all together involved in this field.
Oh, look, I agree with you 110%. And personally, then, I would just like to thank Micha A. Hanks for joining us on the Naked Zombie tonight, Australia's #1 paranormal and pop culture radio show. And also, the simple fact is, thank you again, Micha, for coming on and sharing some time with us tonight, and to the listeners.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and on that closing night, like I say every week on the show, have a good night, have a safe night. If you're now investigating, please look after each other. You have been listening to the best in Australian pop culture paranormal radio, Naked Zombie Radio. I'm your host, Brad Scott, and we will see you next time.